This is value for money budget phone. This is also another value for money budget phone. The R9 and M3. Which one should you choose? Let's find out in today's battle. Hey guys, this is Mark Yo here again and welcome back to my channel. So as some of you guys have seen my new videos on the new Poco M3, what do you think about the new budget offering sub 500 ringgit? Check out my previous video on my first impression and also screen and speaker test if you haven't seen it. So some of you guys have been asking me to do a comparison between the latest Poco M3 with the Xiaomi Redmi 9, since both of them are actually sharing similar specs and pricing in Malaysia. Maybe in other countries also, I'm not so sure. So there are few aspects that we can actually discuss here. First, the front outlook. Okay, so both of these phones actually have 6.53-inch Full HD Plus 1080p with Corning Gorilla Glass 3 protecting the screen from scratches. So both also have pre-applied normal screen protectors, okay, here. And both of these phones actually have 60 Hz of refresh rate and also 120 Hz of touch sampling rate screen. So at maximum brightness, okay, the screen of the Redmi 9 is actually cooler than the Poco M3. But at lowest brightness, the Poco M3 is actually darker than the Redmi 9. So making it more comfortable to read in total dark on Poco M3. So under bright sunlight, by all means, the screen of these two phones have no problem to be seen under high brightness. Okay, if you bump the brightness to the max. So these two are actually good quality IPS LCD display. Second, the back. So both also have plastic back and also frames. But the Poco M3 has a leather-like back, okay, whereas the Redmi 9 has a rough textured back, which is less prone to fingerprints and smudges. The back and the design of the Redmi 9 is actually more symmetrical, okay, as you can see here, as compared to the Poco M3. So when you put on flat surface, it's actually less wobble compared to the Poco M3. So both of these phones are actually at 198 grams, although the Poco M3 is actually 0.5 mm thicker than the Redmi 9 at 9.6 mm. And the Poco M3 actually have a bigger 6000 mAh battery. So talking about battery, Redmi 9 actually has a 5020 mAh battery, whereas the Poco M3 has a whopping 6000 mAh battery. So without gaming and only using internet data with voice over LTE on both these phones, Redmi 9 can actually reach screen on time of 9 hours plus with 2 days of battery life. But Poco M3 actually brings it to the next level by getting screen on time of 11 to 12 hours, okay, with 2.5 day battery life. So these two phones are actually battery champs. So as for charging, both phones also accept 18 watt of fast charging, but of course Poco M3 takes longer to fully charge due to the bigger battery. So both also uses the Type-C port, but the Poco M3 can actually reverse charge other phones. Let me show you guys. So guys, as you can see here, I already connected my Redmi 9 to my Poco M3. Okay, so as you can see here, the Poco M3 is actually charging the Redmi 9. Of course, it's not via fast charging, but at least there's a reverse charging capability that you can find on the Poco M3. So all you just need is actually Type-C to Type-C cable. Moving on, let's talk about cameras. So the Redmi 9 actually has a quad camera setup, 13 megapixel main shooter, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth sensor. Whereas the Poco M3 only have triple cameras. So 48 megapixel for the main shooter, 2 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth sensor. So however, Poco M3 actually has night mode, okay, which is actually, let me show you here. Go to more. So it has a night mode here, which enable you to take better night shot, okay. But if you really need ultra wide angle lens, Redmi 9 would be a better choice. So there's no OIS or EIS for both phones. So both of these phones can actually take up to 1080p video shot at 60 frames per second only for the back and also the front cameras, okay. Oh yeah, the selfie camera for Poco M3 and Redmi 9 are actually at the same, at 8 megapixel. So number 5, let's talk about processor and storage. The Redmi 9 actually has MediaTek Helio G80, which is 12 nanometer build processor, whereas the Poco M3 actually has Snapdragon 662 processor, which is based on 11 nanometer build. In terms of smoothness and app opening, okay, I didn't find any significant difference between these two. And gaming performance, okay, is actually vary between these two phones, depending on the games that you play. So as Fortnite is actually playable, okay, on the Poco M3 at lowest graphics setting, but totally not playable on the Redmi 9. PUBG is actually playable on both phones. However, only Smooth Extreme setting is actually playable on Redmi 9. On Poco M3, you can only set the setting to Smooth and High setting, okay, for the time being. But I'm sure that with future firmware updates, more game will be more playable smoothly on the Poco M3. And number 6, for internal storage, the Redmi 9 has two configurations, the 3 plus 32 gig and 4 plus 64 gig. And Poco M3 actually has 64 gig of base model and 128 gig if you want to bump up the storage. Both also comes with 4 gig of RAM. The Redmi 9 has eMMC 5.1 internal storage, whereas the Poco M3 uses UFS 2.1 or 2.2 for faster data transferring. So UFS 2.1 for the 64 gig and 2.2 for the 128 gig variant. So both phones can actually house 2 SIM cards and a micro SD card at the same time at the single SIM slot. So number 7, fingerprint scanner placement at the back for the Redmi 9, okay, and at the side here for the Poco. So for me, I have no problem using both phones, okay, but the side fingerprint scanner make it easier to actually unlock, okay. And why? Because without lifting the phone, you can actually unlock it, okay. Both phones unlock actually very fast via the fingerprint scanner. Let me show you guys, okay, very fast. And for this one, it's very fast also. And the last one, let's talk about speakers. So Poco M3 actually has dual speaker setup, okay, at the top here and actually at the bottom here, which is actually more immersive and louder, okay, if compared to the single firing speaker at the bottom of the Redmi 9. So what do you guys think about the comparison? With similar pricing between these two phones, I would personally prefer the latest Poco M3. Of course, this is the latest phone. Why? I'm still a fan of Snapdragon. A louder dual speaker setup, UFS 2.1 or 2.2 storage, a bigger battery, okay? You guys tell me. So how about you guys? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks a lot guys for the support. Please subscribe, like and share this video if you find it useful. Until then, take care and stay safe. Peace.